I used to love Saturdays. There was something about the quiet of a weekend morning, the way the sun streamed through the blinds in those first hours, warm, calm, and full of potential. My name is Rachel. I lived alone at the time in a one-bedroom apartment just outside of Westbridge, Oregon. I wasn't exactly a creature of habit, but there were some things I kept consistent in my routine. One of those was my weekly Costco trip. Every Saturday around 9 a.m., I'd grab my keys, reusable bags, and shopping list and head to the Westbridge Costco. It was only about 10 minutes from my apartment, maybe 15 if I hit the lights wrong. I liked going early before the samples, before the families flooded in, before the parking lot became a war zone. I could get everything I needed for the week and be back home by 10:30, sometimes earlier. This was something I'd done for over a year. It was ordinary, safe, predictable until it wasn't. A few years back, I'd moved to Westbridge for a new job, HR admin for a mid-sized tech company. I didn't know many people at first, so my weekends became a kind of solace. I'd fill them with errands, long walks, and small comforts like grocery shopping or reorganizing a drawer. Costco was my favorite. There was something calming about pushing that oversized cart down wide aisles under bright lights, listening to soft indie music overhead while I loaded up on eggs, apples, oat milk, protein bars, and the occasional rotisserie chicken. That store felt familiar, friendly even. I recognized the faces of a few employees, though I never talked much beyond a smile or a good morning. One woman at the door, Donna, I think, always had bright earrings and a huge smile. The guy who stocked the bakery aisle always had his headphones in. I never caught his name. This story happened in early spring. The mornings were still cool, but the daylight was stretching out again. That Saturday started off like every other. I woke up around 7:30, made a cup of coffee, and threw on leggings, sneakers, and a hoodie. I tied my hair back into a quick bun and checked the time, 8:56 a.m. I grabbed my bag and drove to Costco, pulling into a spot halfway down one of the middle rows. The lot was maybe a third full. That sweet spot of early enough to beat the crowd, but late enough to avoid the line of diehards waiting outside the door. I grabbed a cart from the corral instead of inside. They always rolled smoother. As I walked in, Donna scanned my card with a cheerful good morning, and I smiled back. Inside it was calm, cold in the produce section as always. I loaded up on blueberries, spinach, and pre-chopped salad mix. There was an older couple by the meat section having a debate about pork tenderloin. A dad was trying to wrangle two kids while balancing a pack of paper towels. Nothing strange, nothing off. I spent maybe 25 minutes browsing, then hit the checkout. Self-checkout was mostly empty. I scanned everything, bagged up fast, and was out the door by 9:40. As I wheeled my cart through the automatic doors, I felt something odd for just a split second, like a little pinch in my stomach. Nothing major, just a flicker like being watched. But when I glanced around, there was nothing. Just a couple of people heading in, someone packing a car a few rows away. I loaded my stuff into my trunk, returned the cart, and drove home. I remember turning on a podcast on the drive back, something about unsolved mysteries. I remember thinking the host's voice was a little too chipper for the subject matter. That's how normal everything felt. That's how completely unremarkable the morning seemed until 3:17 p.m. I was on the couch halfway through folding laundry and watching reruns of The Office when my phone buzzed. Instagram notification. User 1238gay98 tagged you in a post. I frowned. I didn't recognize the username. I tapped it out of curiosity. The profile was completely blank. No profile pic, no bio, 0 followers, 0 following, just one post. It was a carousel. First slide, a blurry photo of me. I was in the produce section looking at a container of strawberries. The shot was angled like it had been taken from behind a nearby display. My face was partly visible. Second slide, a clearer shot of me pushing my cart past the freezer aisle. Still indoors, still inside Costco. I looked completely unaware. Third slide, a video. My stomach dropped the second it started playing. It showed me walking through the parking lot heading toward my car. The camera was still, the shot slightly zoomed in. My gait, my hoodie, even the way I tucked my keys into my fist as I walked. Everything was unmistakably me. The video ended right as I opened my car door. The perspective made it clear whoever took it had been inside another vehicle watching, waiting. I backed out of the video, heart thudding. The post had no caption, no hashtags, no comments, just me alone being watched. I clicked on the username again, still blank. I refreshed the page and just like that it was gone. Account not found. I stared at my phone for a long time. Was this a prank? Some kind of AI glitch? A scam? But it didn't feel like that. Those photos weren't staged or manipulated. I remembered those exact moments. I even remembered the strawberries. I'd picked the one on the left because the berries looked firmer. No one I knew would do something like this. I didn't have any recent conflicts. I wasn't dating anyone. I had a small but stable friend circle and kept to myself mostly. No coworkers with a grudge, and yet someone had watched me closely, followed me through the store, filmed me from a car in the parking lot. They had tagged me, which meant they either knew my full name or had gone to some effort to find my account, and then deleted everything. I didn't know what to do. I didn't even know what to report. Someone maybe watched me and then maybe deleted a post. I sat there for a long time, frozen. Eventually, I shut all the blinds. For the next few weeks, I avoided Costco entirely. I went to other grocery stores, smaller ones, busier ones. I varied the times. I stopped posting publicly on Instagram. I even considered deleting my account, but something about that felt like letting whoever it was win. I never got another notification, no messages, no sightings, nothing. But that didn't mean the feeling went away. Every time I parked somewhere, I glanced around. Every time I heard footsteps behind me in a store, my heart started pounding. And every time I passed a car with a person sitting alone inside, I felt that same pinch in my gut, like I was being watched again. Months passed. I thought I was doing better. Then one rainy Saturday in February, I pulled into the parking lot again. I don't know why. Maybe it was about closure. Maybe I was just tired of being afraid. Maybe I wanted to prove to myself that it had just been a one-time thing. The lot was half full. I parked close to the front, walked in. Donna was there. Same earrings. "Long time no see," she said with a smile. I blinked. Yeah, it's been a while." Everything looked the same. The layout hadn't changed. The music still played softly overhead. A kid was crying in the bakery. An older man was sampling something in front of the deli. I kept my head on a swivel. Nothing strange. No photos later, no tags, no deleted accounts. But even now, years later, I still get that pinch in my stomach if I shop alone on a Saturday morning. Not because of what happened, but because I still don't know who did it, and worse, if they ever stopped watching. I remember it so clearly because that week had already been stressful. My girlfriend Megan had her car in the shop for what was supposed to be a quick repair, a belt replacement, but it turned into a full 4-day ordeal because they discovered some kind of leak. She works at Costco, the big one off Chandler Parkway in Red Ridge, and though she usually drives herself, I agreed to be her chauffeur that week. We both figured it wasn't a big deal. I work remote and her shifts ended at night when traffic was thin. I'd picked her up 3 nights in a row and nothing unusual had happened. I'd wait in the massive parking lot, watch videos on my phone, maybe scroll social media, and eventually she'd come out tired. We'd grab drive-thru and head home. But that Thursday night felt different. Not immediately, not in any way I could put into words at first, but something about the air, the silence, and the way the lights cast long shadows in that mostly empty lot gave me a weird feeling I didn't recognize until later. Megan's shift was supposed to end at 10 p.m., the same time the store closed. I left the house around 9:30 to give myself some cushion. The drive only took about 10 minutes. When I pulled into the Costco lot around 9:45, it was nearly deserted, just scattered cars in no particular pattern. It wasn't strange. Most customers were gone by then, and the remaining cars belonged to employees finishing their closing tasks inside. I texted her, "Hey, I'm here. Usual spot, no rush." She texted back right away, "Thanks, babe. Just finishing carts and break room trash. Be out in a bit." It was cold that night, barely above freezing, so I kept the car running. I parked a little toward the back under one of the tall light poles. That's something I always do. It feels safer somehow to park beneath a light rather than in a shadow. I reclined my seat just a little and opened YouTube. Random short videos just killing time. It couldn't have been more than 10 minutes before I noticed something. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement. I glanced up. A woman was walking slowly across the parking lot, but not coming from the store's doors. She wasn't walking toward a car either. She was just there somewhere near the garden center entrance, but out in the open. She was wearing a white t-shirt, no jacket. Her arms were bare. Her pace was weirdly slow, not sluggish like she was injured, but deliberate, like someone walking just to walk. I stared at her for a second, not knowing why I was paying attention. Something about her felt off. Maybe it was the way her head never turned. Her body swayed a little, like she was cold, but she didn't cross her arms or rub them or shiver. She just kept going in this slow, zigzag pattern between islands of empty shopping carts and random parked cars. I looked back down at my phone. She wasn't doing anything wrong, really, just odd. By the time it was 10 p.m., Megan still hadn't come out, which wasn't totally unusual. Sometimes she stayed a little late to help one of her co-workers. I looked back toward the store, then scanned the lot. The woman was now behind my car. I blinked. She had gotten a lot closer without me noticing. She wasn't walking anymore. She was standing now several spaces away, just staring, not moving, not pacing, just facing my car. My heart beat a little faster. I sat up straighter and tapped the lock button, even though I was pretty sure I'd already locked the doors. Maybe she needed help, I told myself. Maybe she was lost or homeless or disoriented. But why not approach someone inside the well-lit store? Why linger outside in the cold? I didn't do anything, I just sat still. Then she started walking again, right toward my car. Not fast, just the same pace as before. I gripped the steering wheel without meaning to. She was walking on the passenger side now, closer, her eyes following my face through the windshield. She passed the front of my car and came to the window. Then she stopped. She looked indirectly at me. She knocked 3 times. Knock, knock, knock. I didn't roll the window down. I held up a hand like, "Sorry, I can't help you," and looked away. I didn't want to engage. She knocked again, harder, then again, this time with force. I looked at her, really looked, and there was something in her eyes I didn't like. They were wide, dilated. Her pupils nearly swallowed the color of her irises. Her jaw was clenched like she was chewing on something or grinding her teeth. Then she started pounding with her fists, with her palms, slapping, banging, shoving the side mirror. I panicked. I threw the car in reverse and pulled out of the space fast. She chased after me, full sprint now. I could see her in my mirror, barefoot and running across the pavement like it wasn't freezing. I turned sharply left and hit the gas, pulling around to the front of the store where the exit doors were. I half expected Megan to walk out right then, but she wasn't there. I kept moving, circled to the far end of the parking lot near the tire center and parked again. I texted Megan quickly. "Hey, some woman just tried to open my car door." Really weird. Barefoot and freaking out. No response. She was probably cleaning or on a work phone or something. Still, I locked the doors again, checked my mirrors, and tried to stay calm. I didn't see the woman anywhere. For a few minutes, it was totally quiet. Then I saw movement to my right. She was back, charging at full speed from between 2 parked vans. I didn't wait. I backed out and floored it again. This time, not even caring where I went. I ended up on the other side of the lot again, closer to the gas station side where there were still a couple cars and 1 security light flickering near the propane tank cage. I was breathing heavy now. I texted Megan again, this time typing faster. That woman came after me again. I had to drive off. Where are you? I was about to call her when I saw the Costco doors slide open. Megan came out wearing her red jacket, slinging her backpack over one shoulder and waving at me. I drove straight toward her and hit the locks again the second she got in. "What's wrong?" she said, looking at me. "You look like you saw a ghost." "There was a woman out there," I said, starting to drive off. "She came at my car twice. First she knocked like hard and then she full-on sprinted at me the second time." Megan laughed. "Are you serious?" "I'm dead serious. She was barefoot and wearing short sleeves. It's like 34 degrees outside. She looked strung out or something, or sick. I don't know. I didn't roll my window down." "Where is she now?" "I don't know. I haven't seen her since I circled back around to get you." We both looked out the windows as we left the lot. I expected to see her again, maybe standing by the side of the road or behind a car, but there was nothing. Megan shook her head. "That's freaky. Maybe she's mentally ill." "Maybe. But I don't get why she came after me twice. There are a dozen other cars in that lot she could have walked up to. Why pick mine?" Neither of us had an answer. When we got home, I sat in silence for a bit. I even looked up local news or reports to see if anyone else had encountered something similar in that parking lot. Nothing. The next day, Megan told her manager about the incident. He seemed surprised, but admitted they'd had occasional trouble with a woman loitering behind the building near the trash compactor. Sometimes she dug through dumpsters, but they had never seen her walk up to anyone's car before. I dropped Megan off that day and watched from the lot for a bit just in case. No sign of the woman. She never came back, at least not while I was there. But that night changed something in me. I don't sit idle in dark lots anymore. I keep my doors locked. I pay attention when someone walks in my peripheral vision, and I never ever roll my window down. I didn't realize I was being followed until it was too late. Back then, I was 17, just a high school junior trying to earn some gas money. I worked at the Costco in Millbrook, a decent-sized town in Oregon. My parents were strict about grades, but they also believed in hard work, so I convinced them to let me get a part-time job as long as I kept up with school. Costco was one of the better places to work in town. Decent pay, good benefits even for part-timers, and a reputation for treating employees right. It was only my second job. My first had been a short-lived summer gig at a frozen yogurt place. I was still figuring out how to balance school, work, and a social life that was barely hanging on. The Costco job mostly meant I worked evenings and weekends, usually on register or folding clothes in the apparel section. I'd been there about 2 months when I met Ryan. It was a Thursday night in early November, and I'd just finished my shift. The sun had set early, as it does that time of year, and the huge parking lot was lit by rows of buzzing yellow lights. I had my red vest balled up in one hand and my phone in the other, texting my friend Maddie to see if she wanted to hang out after I got home. That's when I heard, "You just getting off?" I looked up. A guy, maybe 19 or 20, stood a few feet away, smiling at me. He was tall, thin, with light brown hair that curled slightly at the ends. He wore the same red Costco vest I did over a black hoodie and khaki pants. I didn't recognize him, but I knew new hires came in all the time. "Yeah," I said, smiling politely. "You?" "Yep," he nodded. "First week, they've got me bouncing around, stocking carts, a little bit of everything." I laughed lightly, still focused on my phone. "Sounds about right. I think I did every job in the store my first month." He chuckled. "I'm Ryan, by the way. Emily." We started walking toward our cars, which happened to be parked near each other. At first, the conversation felt normal. He asked how long I'd worked there, what school I went to. I told him I was still at Millbrook High, and he said he'd graduated from there 2 years ago. "Oh, really?" I said. "I don't think I've seen you before." "I was kind of under the radar," he said with a shrug. "Quiet kid." He asked where I lived, and I gave a vague answer. "Kind of near the Sonic," which was a few blocks from my neighborhood. He nodded, then said, "Nice. I'm right over there, too." Looking back, that should have made me pause. I hadn't seen him around school or in the neighborhood before, and Millbrook isn't that big. But at the time, it felt like a harmless coincidence. When we got to our cars, mine a beat-up blue Corolla, his a white sedan, I told him to have a good night. He smiled and said, "You too, Emily. See you around." I got in, checked my messages, started my car, and pulled out. I didn't notice right away that he was behind me. The route home from Costco isn't complicated. Left onto Millbrook Avenue, then a right onto Ridgeway, which runs right past my neighborhood. I figured he was just heading the same direction. But when I made the turn into Maple Glen Estates, a quiet residential loop with one entrance and exit, I caught something in my rearview mirror. That white sedan turned in too. My stomach flipped a little, but I told myself not to be paranoid. Maybe he really did live nearby. I slowed down, trying to give him a chance to turn off, but he stayed right behind me. I passed the first two streets, Spruce Lane and Alder Drive, and he didn't veer off. Then I turned onto Hemlock Way, my street. My house was the third on the left. As I pulled into the driveway, the white sedan kept going, crawling past my house at a painfully slow speed. I watched from my side mirror as it reached the end of the cul-de-sac. Instead of turning around, it parked, just sat there. My hand hovered over my keys. I didn't get out of the car. I waited, watching the silhouette in the driver's seat. The engine stayed on. After maybe 30 seconds, the headlights flicked off. I couldn't see anything after that. I panicked and called my mom. "Can you come outside?" I asked, my voice low. "What's wrong?" "Just someone's parked outside. I don't know them, please." My mom opened the front door a moment later, waving. I got out, pretending nothing was wrong, and walked quickly to the porch. I didn't turn around to look at the car again. Once I was inside, I peeked through the curtains. The sedan was gone. I didn't see Ryan at work the next day or the next week. I asked around casually, and nobody seemed to know who he was. There was a new guy, my supervisor said, frowning, but he no-showed after orientation. That didn't make sense. I had talked to him in uniform. He knew the store, had a vest, knew where the employees parked. You couldn't fake that, could you? Weeks passed. I tried to move on. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe he did live nearby. Maybe he just parked for a second to answer a text or fix his GPS. But I couldn't shake it, especially not after what happened the following month. It was December, and I was working a closing shift, register duty. My manager, James, asked me to stay 15 minutes late to help bag for another cashier. I agreed. And by the time I finally clocked out, the store was nearly empty. I walked out with another girl, Rosa, who worked in the bakery. We weren't close, but we made small talk on the way to our cars. Hers was closer, so she waved goodnight and got in. I kept walking. As I approached my Corolla, I saw something tucked under the windshield wiper. A folded sheet of notebook paper. At first, I thought it was a flyer or coupon. I opened it. There was no greeting, just 6 words. "I know where you sleep." I stood frozen. My heart slammed against my ribs. I looked around the lot, scanning the rows of cars, but saw no one. No white sedan, nothing. I didn't even remember unlocking my car. I just climbed in and locked the doors immediately, adrenaline crashing over me in waves. I drove straight to the police station. Claire Dalton was the kind of person who found comfort in patterns. At 32, she had built her life around predictability. She worked as an insurance adjuster in Red Ridge, Oregon, the kind of job that demanded attention to detail and rewarded caution. She lived in a 2-bedroom apartment, kept her books alphabetized, and wrote her grocery lists in neat blocked letters. And every Saturday, without fail, she drove to the Costco off Chandler Parkway. The trips were practical. She stocked up on fruit, oat milk, frozen salmon, and paper goods. But it was also ritual. Costco was her controlled chaos. Wide aisles, buzzing lights, and the hum of families trying samples. It gave her the strange sense of community she lacked elsewhere. That Saturday in December began as they usually did. Cold air, low clouds, a faint drizzle making the pavement shine. Claire left at 9 a.m. coffee in hand, hoodie zipped up, hair in a ponytail. The lot was half full when she pulled in, which was about right for that time of morning. She parked under a lamppost, slid her reusable bags into her cart and headed inside. Nothing unusual. At first, she noticed him in the produce section. A tall man, maybe mid-40s, gray baseball cap pulled low. He wasn't shopping, not really. He stood near the apples with an empty cart, staring not at the fruit but at the people. Claire caught his eyes once, quickly looked away and told herself not to overthink it. She moved through her list: spinach, blueberries, oat milk. By the time she hit the freezer aisle, she felt it again, that prickling awareness of being watched. She turned her head slightly. The man was there, 3 aisles down, still no groceries, just standing. She felt a flicker in her gut, not fear yet, but discomfort. At checkout, she deliberately chose self-scan, bagged fast, and pushed her cart outside. The morning drizzle had thickened into light rain. She hurried to her car and froze. 2 rows away, under another lamppost, stood the same man. No cart now, hands in pockets, facing her direction. Claire swallowed, forced herself to keep moving. She loaded her trunk, shoved the cart into the corral, and got into the driver's seat. Her hands trembled against the steering wheel. She told herself, "It's a coincidence, nothing more." She started the engine, checked her mirrors, and nearly jolted. The man was gone. By afternoon, she convinced herself it was nothing, paranoia. The world was full of people who lingered, who looked too long. It didn't mean danger. Then, at 3:17 p.m., her phone buzzed. Instagram notification: user Shadowlane17 tagged you in a post. Her blood ran cold. She opened it. The account was blank. No picture, no followers, no bio. Just one post. A photo of her. Inside Costco, standing at the berry display. The angle was from behind a stack of bananas. She hadn't been aware of it at all. The second photo, her walking toward checkout, head turned slightly as if mid-thought. The third, a short video. Claire in the parking lot, pushing her cart, rain speckled on her hoodie. The camera was inside a car, zoomed slightly, capturing her every step. The clip ended the second she opened her trunk. No caption, no hashtags, just her. She stared at the screen, stomach churning, then refreshed the account. Gone. User not found. Her hands shook so violently she nearly dropped the phone. The next week, she didn't go to Costco, or the one after. She switched to smaller grocery stores, farmers markets, places crowded and bright. She varied her schedule. Still, the feeling lingered. Every time someone stood too still, she noticed. Every time a car idled near her apartment complex, her heart stuttered. By February, she convinced herself it was over. Maybe some creep had taken a few photos, posted them for a laugh, and moved on. Until one night when she dreamt she was inside Costco again. The shelves were empty. The lights buzzed faintly. Her footsteps echoed. And from behind her came the click of a camera shutter. She woke at 3:17 a.m., the exact same time as the Instagram. 11 months passed. She stayed away. Then one rainy Saturday, Claire drove to Costco again. She told herself it was closure. She couldn't hide forever. The lot looked the same. The store smelled the same. Donna, the greeter, was there with her bright earrings. Claire even managed a smile. She shopped fast, alert. Spinach, berries, oat milk. She kept scanning over her shoulder but saw nothing unusual. Families, couples, kids crying over muffins. At checkout, she felt a twinge in her gut. That same flicker, but there was no man in a gray cap, no camera phone. She drove home. Nothing happened. And yet, she never stopped looking over her shoulder. The real fracture came months later, when Claire's girlfriend, Megan, needed rides. Megan worked at the Red Ridge Costco, the big one off Chandler Parkway. Usually she drove herself, but her car was in the shop for a week. Claire agreed to pick her up after closing shifts. The first few nights were uneventful. Claire waited in the lot, scrolling her phone. Employees trickled out. Megan would appear, red jacket zipped, tired but smiling. But on Thursday night, Claire noticed her. A woman in a white t-shirt, no jacket, no shoes, walking slowly across the cold lot, not toward a car, not toward the store, just wandering. Her arms hung loose, her head never turned. Her pace was deliberate, almost mechanical. Claire tried to ignore it, but minutes later the woman was closer, behind her car now, standing still, watching. Claire's chest tightened. She hit the lock button, though the doors were already locked. The woman walked forward, stopped at the passenger window, knocked 3 times. Knock, knock, knock. Claire raised a hand. Sorry, can't help you. The woman knocked again, harder, then began pounding, fists and palms slamming the glass, rattling the side mirror. Her pupils looked huge. Her jaw clenched like she was chewing air. Claire panicked. She threw the car in reverse, tires squealing on wet pavement. The woman sprinted after her, barefoot, full speed. Claire tore across the lot, heart hammering. She circled near the tire center, hands trembling, breath ragged. She texted Megan. Some woman just tried to open my car door. Where are you? No reply. Then the doors slid open. Megan emerged, backpack slung, waving casually. Claire floored it toward her. The moment Megan got in, Claire hit the locks again. What happened? Megan asked, startled at Claire's pale face. Claire's voice shook. A woman came at my car. Twice. Barefoot. No coat. She broke off. Megan frowned. Maybe she's homeless? Or sick? Why me? Why my car? Neither of them had an answer. The next day, Megan told her manager. He admitted they'd seen a woman loitering near the dumpsters sometimes, but she'd never approached cars before. That was the official story. But Claire couldn't shake the pounding on the glass. The final crack came weeks later, a closing shift again. Claire parked in her usual spot, scrolling her phone. Megan would be done in 15 minutes. That's when Claire noticed him, a man in a red Costco vest walking across the lot. Young, maybe 19 or 20. Brown hair curling under his cap. He had an easy smile, almost too easy. He walked past her car, glanced in and gave a small nod. Claire froze because she recognized him. From the Millbrook forum threads she'd read late at night about a girl named Emily who once worked at another Oregon Costco. Emily had written about a man just like this. She called him Ryan. He followed her car after a shift. He left a note under her wiper. I know where you sleep. Her post ended with, I went to the police. They never found him. Now he was here, in Red Ridge. The man smiled at Claire's window, then walked past into the shadows between 2 cars. Gone. Her phone buzzed immediately. Instagram notification. Shadowlane 17 tagged you in a post. She clicked it with shaking hands. A new photo, not of her in Costco, but of her right now. Sitting in her car, phone glowing against her pale face. She looked up. The lot was nearly empty. Rain tapped the windshield. Somewhere in the dark rows of cars, a shutter clicked. Claire drove away before Megan even came out, circling back only when she was sure the lot was clear. She didn't tell her girlfriend everything. Not the account, not the photo. How could she? Because if she admitted it, then it was real. And if it was real, it meant the shadow never stopped watching. It meant the stalker wasn't just in Millbrook, or Westbridge, or Red Ridge. He was everywhere. Costco lights cast long shadows, and he knew her routine. Claire still shops for groceries, sometimes at small stores, sometimes even at Costco in daylight when the crowds are thick. But she never lingers. She never parks in the same row twice, and she never ignores the pinch in her stomach anymore. Because once you've been tagged, you never really know when the shadow will post again. My name is Daniel Ruiz, and for 6 years I worked nights at the Costco in Fairhaven, Oregon. Not the big flashy Red Ridge location everyone talks about, but the older one near the industrial park, tucked between a FedEx hub and a row of half-empty warehouses. We weren't the busiest store in the chain, but because of our location, we stayed open late. And because I was the kind of guy who never quite fit into 9 to 5, I wound up as night manager. The job was routine. Close the registers, walk the floor, check the loading dock, and make sure employees didn't cut corners. After hours, when the last shopper had gone and the lights dimmed to half power, I had the whole store to myself. The soundscape was simple. The hum of refrigeration units, the buzz of fluorescent bulbs, the occasional creak of settling steel racks. I told myself I liked the solitude. That was before the night I realized I wasn't alone. It was a Tuesday just after 11 p.m. Closing had gone smoothly. My last cashier, Jordan, waved goodnight as I locked the front doors. By 11:15, I was the only employee left. I began my usual walkthrough: bakery, produce, meat, frozen section. Everything neat, lights dim. When I reached aisle 317, cleaning supplies, I saw it. A cart, parked dead center facing me, empty. At first I figured someone forgot to return it, but something made me pause. We never left carts inside after hours. It was part of the closing routine. I pushed it aside and kept going, telling myself it was nothing. But as I moved toward the electronics section, I felt the distinct weight of eyes, like someone watching from just out of view. I stopped, listened. Nothing. Then faintly the squeak of wheels. I spun around. The cart was behind me again. Closer, my pulse hammered. I told myself I was imagining things. I pushed the cart toward the corral near the registers and left it there, checked my watch. Midnight was approaching. That night I dreamed of carts rolling by themselves down empty. The next morning I checked the security cameras. At 11:20 p.m., the feed from aisle 317 showed exactly what I remembered: me spotting the cart, me pushing it aside, me walking away. But 10 seconds later, the camera flickered, and when the picture steadied, the cart was gone. No movement, no one pushing it, just gone. I replayed it a dozen times. Same result. I told myself it was a glitch. Our cameras were old, but part of me couldn't shake the memory of those squeaking wheels. That night I carried a flashlight. A week passed before it escalated. It was near closing again. Employees were finishing up, lights dimming, last announcements echoing through the store. I stood at the end of the main aisle, clipboard in hand, when I saw him. A man. Standing near the freezer section, gray hoodie. Cap pulled low. He wasn't moving, just staring at me across the vast aisle. "Sir, we're closed," I called. My voice echoed too loudly. He didn't move. I took a step forward to know, and the lights above him flickered just for a second. When they steadied, he was gone. No footsteps, no sound, just vanished. My stomach turned cold. I sprinted to the freezers, flashlight beam cutting across stacked boxes of frozen pizza. Empty. I told myself it was a trick of the light, reflection, stress. But when I returned to my office later, a sticky note was waiting on my desk. 6 words, block letters, neat. "I know your rounds, Daniel. Act 5, unseen patterns." I didn't report it, not yet. What would I say? That a ghost left me a note? That a man vanished in front of me? Instead, I studied the cameras again. This time, I found something worse. In the feed from 3 nights earlier, around 2 a.m., a figure moved through the aisles. Slow, deliberate, between shadows. Always at the far edge of the frame, a man in gray. He didn't shop. He didn't carry a bag. He just wandered. And then, around 2:17 a.m., he stood directly beneath one of the cameras and looked up. The footage glitched. When it returned, the aisle was empty. I checked the building logs. No door alarms, no employee keycard entries, no explanation. Act 6, the employee. 2 nights later, Rosa, one of the bakery closers, approached me before her shift. "Hey, weird question," she said. "Did you hire a new guy?" I frowned. "Not that I know of." "Why?" She glanced around. Tall, gray hoodie. I saw him by the freezer doors last night when I was clocking out. I thought he was a floater. My skin prickled. "He talked to you?" I asked. She shook her head. "No, but..." He waved. I forced a laugh. "Probably a vendor." But my hands were sweating. Act 7. The knock. That Friday, I stayed late in my office, forcing myself to catch up on paperwork. By 1 a.m., the store was still. And then, knock. Soft from the glass wall of my office. I looked up. A man in a gray hoodie stood there, face shadowed. Knock, knock. I froze. My keys were on the desk, but my legs wouldn't move. Then slowly he lifted a phone, snapped a photo. The flash burst white, searing my vision, and when my eyes cleared, the glass wall was empty. I drove home shaking, barely remembering the trip. At 3:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. Instagram notification, user Isleshadow317 tagged you in a post. The account was blank. No followers, no profile pic. One post, a photo of me, sitting in my office at Costco. Head bent over paperwork. Exact timestamp, 1:03 a.m., taken from outside the glass wall. I refreshed. Gone. User not found. I stopped sleeping well. Every shadow in the store looked like him. Every creak of steel racks made my chest tighten. But I kept working. Bills don't stop just because you're scared. Then came the night I heard wheels again. I was near the loading dock around 2 a.m. when the sound echoed through the dark. Squeak, 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 a cart. I followed the noise, past the bulk goods, past the seasonal displays. The squeaks grew louder, faster. I turned a corner and froze. A line of carts stood waiting in the aisle, at least 10 of them, all facing me, and behind them the man in gray. He raised a hand, waved once, then sprinted toward me. I bolted, ran through aisles, flashlight beam bouncing. My breath tore through my throat. Behind me the rattle of wheels thundered, carts slamming against each other, squealing across the polished concrete. I reached the front doors, fumbled with my keys, burst into the night air. The lot was empty. When I dared look back through the glass, the carts were gone. I quit 2 weeks later. No notice, no explanation, just walked away. But I never stopped checking. Sometimes at 3:17 a.m., my phone buzzes. A notification from an account that vanishes the second I tap it. Always the same. A photo of me. Not at Costco anymore, but at home, through my window. My name is Emily Hart. For 8 years, I worked in inventory control for Costco's Northwest region. My job was not glamorous, but I loved it. I sat in a quiet office above the sales floor, surrounded by spreadsheets, printouts, and screens showing real-time stock levels. It was my responsibility to make sure the numbers matched what was on the shelves. If the system said we had 432 cases of bottled water, there had better be 432 cases in the warehouse. If there was a mismatch, it was on me to track it down. Inventory was supposed to be about certainty. Numbers don't lie. That was before the numbers started disappearing. It began small. 3 cases of energy drinks missing from aisle 314. A few boxes of diapers unaccounted for. Common errors. But then it escalated. Whole pallets vanished from the system overnight. 48 televisions. 92 cartons of eggs. Entire sections blinked out of existence. When I ran reports, the system didn't even flag them as missing. It was as if they'd never existed at all. At first, I blamed software, but when I went down to the floor and walked the aisles, the shelves were empty. Employees swore they'd stocked them. Managers swore no trucks had gone out. Yet the space was bare. And every time I checked the cameras, the footage glitched at the exact moment the inventory disappeared. I filed tickets with IT. They said the system was fine. I asked logistics. They said no shipments had left. I pressed store management. They told me not to worry, loss prevention would handle it. But late one Friday night, long after everyone had left, my office phone rang. The caller ID said EXT, ISIL 317. But no phone was installed on aisle 317. I picked it up anyway. Static. Then faintly, Emily. A whisper, drawn out, broken. I slammed the phone down. The next morning, 317's entire stock of cleaning products was gone. I started asking around quietly. That's when I met Thomas. He was a stalker, early 20s, quiet, forgettable. One night, while I was walking the aisles with my clipboard, he pulled me aside. "You're looking for the wrong thing," he said. "What do you mean?" He glanced over his shoulder. It's not the inventory going missing. It's the space. The records are covering for it. I frowned. The space? He nodded. His eyes were wide, bloodshot. Check the tape from last Tuesday. Midnight, aisle 317. Then he walked off before I could ask more. When I checked the footage, I froze. At exactly 12 a.m., the shelf on 317 warped. Not the products, the shelf. The steel bent inward like being pulled from behind, then snapped back. When the picture steadied, the products were gone. Not stolen, not carried away. Just gone. Act 5, the logbook. 2 days later, Thomas didn't show up for his shift. HR said he quit. No notice, no reason, just gone. In his locker, they found only one thing, a spiral notebook. Most of the pages were scribbles, numbers, aisle codes, timestamps. But one phrase appeared over and over in block letters. The space is feeding. I couldn't sleep that night. The disappearances accelerated. Whole rows of shelves blinked out. The bakery section lost 20 racks of bread in one night. An entire freezer's worth of frozen food went missing the next. Employees joked about it nervously, but I saw the fear in their eyes. Then came the night I saw it myself. I was doing a floor check at 2 a.m. when the lights above aisle 317 flickered. A low hum filled the air like static electricity before a storm. And then the air rippled. I don't know how else to describe it. Like heat waves on asphalt. The steel racks shuddered, groaned. Products rattled, trembled. And then, in a single sickening jerk, the entire middle section of the aisle snapped inward. A sucking sound, a pressure drop that popped my ears, and the products were gone. I staggered back, clutching my chest. The aisle looked normal again, except for the empty shelves. I tried to escalate it. I wrote a detailed report, attached screenshots, even video stills from the glitching cameras. My district manager called me into his office. "Emily," he said, voice calm, hands folded. "You're overworked. Take some vacation. Don't mention this to anyone else. But the footage..." He slid a folder across the desk. Inside was my own report, stamped in red. Closed. User error. I looked up at him. His eyes were cold. "Do you understand?" he asked. I nodded, but my hands shook. I didn't take vacation. I stayed late every night, combing through the system. And then, one morning, the system flagged something impossible. Employee ID. 49,273 Thomas Green. Status: removed, but not terminated. Not quit, just removed. His name no longer appeared on payroll. No record of hiring, no emergency contact. As if he'd never existed. When I checked the locker room again, his notebook was gone. Even the cameras from his last shift showed nothing. His figure had been wiped from the feed. But I remembered him. I knew he'd been real, didn't I? The next Friday, I stayed after hours again. Midnight ticked past. I sat in my office, lights dim, watching the monitors. Aisle 317 flickered. The phone rang. EXT. Aisle 317. I picked it up, hands trembling. Static. Then, "You're next." The line went dead. I ran to the floor, my footsteps echoed too loud. At 317, the air rippled again. The racks groaned. And standing at the far end of the aisle was Thomas. Gray-faced, eyes blank. "Thomas!" My voice cracked. He didn't answer. He lifted one hand and pointed at the shelves, and then, without a sound, he stepped backward, into the rippling air, and vanished. I don't know how long I stood there, maybe seconds, maybe hours. When I finally staggered back to my office, the monitors were blank, every single feed. The system showed zero inventory, every product, every pallet, every item gone. Only one entry remained, blinking on the screen. Employee ID 57821, Hart, Emily, status, pending removal. I don't remember leaving the store. I don't remember driving home. But when I woke the next morning, my phone was gone. My laptop was gone. Even the spare Costco badge I kept on my dresser was gone. As if the system had reached beyond the store. As if it was erasing me. I'm writing this on a borrowed computer. When I hit save, I don't know if the file will still exist tomorrow. If you're reading this, check your receipts. Check your memories. Because sometimes the inventory isn't what disappears. Sometimes it's us. I never thought much about routines until the day mine almost got me killed. For me, Costco was ritual. Every Saturday morning, 9:15 sharp, I'd be there with my list. Oat milk, frozen berries, rotisserie chicken, toothpaste multi-pack. I'm Michael, 33, recently divorced, trying to keep life neat and orderly. My therapist said consistency helped, so I embraced it. Westbridge Costco had become my safe haven. Wide aisles, familiar faces, and the comforting anonymity of moving through a crowd. Nobody asked questions, nobody cared. Just shoppers pushing oversized carts under fluorescent lights. That's why I noticed him. At first, nothing about him screamed strange. Mid-40s maybe, short brown hair, plain jeans, dark jacket. He looked like any other weekend shopper. But I realized he'd been behind me 3 different times, 3 different aisles without a single item in his cart. Aisle 5, snacks. I was grabbing almonds. He walked past, empty cart. Aisle 9, household cleaners. I was comparing detergents. He drifted by again, cart still bare. Aisle 14, books and seasonal stuff. There he was, leaning against a display of puzzles, not pretending to shop anymore. I told myself it was coincidence. The store wasn't huge. Paths crossed. Still, a pinched unease sat in my stomach. I tried to ignore him, moved faster toward produce. Costco on Saturdays was busy enough that I could blend in. I picked out blueberries, bagged a salad kit. When I turned, he was standing across the aisle, no cart this time, just watching. Our eyes met. He smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile, too long, too flat, like he was trying to remember how people did it. "Nice day," he said, voice calm. Yeah." I forced a nod and pushed away. At checkout, I rushed through self-scan. My hands shook. I kept glancing at the glass doors, expecting to see him waiting. Nothing. By the time I loaded groceries into my trunk, I convinced myself I'd overreacted. People watch others all the time. Maybe he was waiting for someone. Maybe he was shy. Maybe I was paranoid. I drove home, unpacked, tried to shake it off, but that night, lying in bed, I kept picturing his smile. 1 week later, he was back. Same Costco, same time. This time, he had no card at all. Just his hands in his jacket pockets, strolling slowly down the central aisle like he was inspecting the crowd. His eyes found me almost immediately. "Morning," he said, like we were old friends. I froze. "Morning. Good place to shop," he said. "You come here often?" My throat tightened. I didn't answer, just grabbed the nearest thing, protein bars, and turned away. For the rest of the trip, I stayed near other shoppers, a mom with kids, an older couple debating coffee brands. Each time I thought I'd lost him, I'd glimpse that same dark jacket a few rows over. At checkout, I skipped self-scan and went to a regular lane, heart hammering. I figured if something happened, at least the cashier would notice. But nothing happened. He never got in line. He just stood near the exit, eyes on me. I forced a casual smile at Donna, the door attendant with bright earrings. She scanned my receipt. "Have a good one, hun." Outside, I rushed to my car, unlocked it fast, and shoved bags in. I glanced up. The man was standing 3 rows down, no car, no cart, just staring. I drove off without looking back. That night, a new Instagram notification popped up. Username Costco_aisle 14. Tag, "You were here today?" My chest went cold. The account had one post, a photo of me, unmistakably me, leaning over to check avocados in produce. My hoodie, my haircut, my posture, everything exact. The caption, "Every Saturday like clockwork." I clicked the profile, 0 followers, 0 following, no bio. My thumb hovered over the report button. Before I pressed it, the page refreshed. Account not found. Just like that, gone. I considered skipping Costco the next weekend, but routine is a powerful drug. I told myself lightning wouldn't strike 3 times. When I pulled into the lot, I parked near the front under cameras where foot traffic was constant. Inside, I grabbed a cart, forced myself to breathe. For 15 minutes, everything was normal. Crowds, chatter, clatter of carts. Relief started to wash over me. Maybe it was over. Then I turned into aisle 14. He was there. No cart, no pretense, just standing dead center, blocking the way. His smile was wider now. "You didn't answer my message," he said. I froze. My blood roared in my ears. "What message?" His head tilted. "Online." My grip tightened on the cart handle. "I don't know what you're talking about." Silence. His eyes studied me, unblinking. Then he stepped aside slowly, like he was granting permission. I pushed past, every nerve screaming. At checkout, I reported him to the manager, a tired man named Greg. I explained everything, the follow. At checkout, I reported him to the manager, a tired man named Greg. I explained everything, the following, the photo, the account. Greg frowned. "Sir, we don't allow photography in the store. If someone's harassing you, I can ask them to leave." "Yes, he's here right now." But when Greg went to look, the man was gone. That night, 11:42 p.m., I heard a knock at my apartment door. 3 slow raps. Knock, knock, knock. I froze on the couch. My complex was secure entry. Nobody knocked unannounced. I didn't move. Another 3 knocks. Louder this time. My phone was in my hand before I realized it. I dialed 911. Whispered, "Someone's at my door. He's been following me." The operator told me to stay on the line. Then silence. I crept to the peephole. Empty hallway. By the time police arrived, no one was there. They took a report, said they'd patrol more often. They asked if I had enemies. I said no. But I knew. I skipped Costco the next 2 weekends. Tried shopping elsewhere, Safeway, Trader Joe's. Normal stores, normal crowds. Then one Saturday, curiosity pulled me back. I missed the wide aisles, the sense of order. I parked under a camera, walked in. Donna smiled, scanned my card. For 20 minutes, everything was fine. I almost felt stupid for being afraid. Then I reached frozen foods. Tucked between pizza boxes was a folded sheet of notebook paper. My name scrawled across the front. I glanced around. No one close enough. Hands trembling, I unfolded it. 6 words. "You can't break routine forever." That was it. I couldn't keep living like prey. The next week, I came prepared. Phone recording in my pocket, pepper spray on my keychain. I walked through Costco like bait, aisle after aisle, pretending to shop, waiting. And there he was, aisle 14, always aisle 14. This time, I spoke first. "Why me?" His smile widened. "Because you're easy." "What do you want?" He leaned closer. "To remind you you're never alone." My skin crawled. "Leave me alone or I'll call the police right now." His face hardened. No smile this time. Just flat, cold eyes. Then he turned and walked away. I recorded every second. Police actually took the video seriously. They said he matched descriptions from 2 other harassment reports near different Costcos. Same behavior, no cart, following, photos, cryptic notes. They called him the aisle stalker. But he was slippery. Fake names, burner accounts, no fixed address. Each time someone complained, he disappeared before police arrived. They promised to investigate, suggested I vary routines, stay alert. For weeks, I looked over my shoulder everywhere, work, gym, parking lots. But he never appeared again. Months passed. Slowly, the panic dulled. I went back to Costco cautiously, then regularly. I even smiled at Donna again. Life almost felt normal. Until last Saturday. I was walking past seasonal items when a chill ran through me. On the shelf tucked between beach chairs sat a single puzzle box. Its cover wasn't like the others. Instead of artwork, it was a printed photo. A photo of me, standing in aisle 14, alone.